Continuing my review of the scripts for getting your volume slider working, we now come to the scripts for the pause button. This is one of the more complex aspects of the script. When the pause button is pressed based on this event listener, it's going to run the pause play function right there. This function is a little bit more sophisticated than the functions for the stopping of the sound or the playing of the sound. We need to keep track if the music is playing or not. So function pause play. If the music is playing, then capture the position of that music. Notice that it's playing in the My Sound channel. We kind of control a lot of the properties of the playback using the sound channel class. So if that sound is playing, then stop the sound. That's pretty straightforward. If is playing equals false, then do nothing. So the key here is we are capturing the position using the position property of the sound channel and putting that in a variable called pause position, which I initialized up above. Now we get to the stop button. There's our stop button event listener. There is my name of the stop button instance. That's very important. Add event listener, mouse event is click. Run the stop play function when that button has been clicked. Here is the stop play function. Pretty straightforward. One little twist here is if the music is playing, then stop it and reset the pause position variable to 0. Because when they click on the stop button, we want the music to start over from the 0 position from the beginning. So if my sound channel equals null, then set my sound channel to stop. Set the pause position variable to 0. And if is playing equals false, then do nothing. The next set of scripts here is the meat and potatoes, so let's go ahead and look at these in more detail. First line of script here is we make a rectangle and set its width to 100. This will match the rectangle that we drew in the volume control movie clip there. So we're setting up a variable rectangle. Those are the dimensions. Notice that it's 100 pixels wide. We then need a variable to check if the handle is being dragged. That's the My Slider movie clip. If variable drag boolean equals false. Next we're setting up our event listener to initiate the start dragging function. So we're taking the volume underscore movie clip right there, and the My Slider movie clip inside of it. Remember, we set that up in the previous movie. That's the My Slider movie clip inside of the volume movie clip. We're adding an event listener when that is starting to be dragged. So we're clicking and dragging on the My Slider, then run this function, start dragging. Hopefully by now this event listener makes sense to you. Now here we tell Flash where it should be able to drag on that margin there. This is where the 100 pixels comes in. So take the volume slider there, start to drag false rectangle. That's telling Flash, hey, keep that volume slider on the rectangle graphic. Dragging equals true. We now come to the most important part probably of this script. That is the adjust volume function. Now this function is set up with this event listener. The event is on enter frame. So in other words, this is going to be running all the time. As soon as this SWF file starts, the adjust volume function will run. Here, the function is going to adjust the volume. Right here, there's the function adjust volume. And we're going to run this variable right here, my volume. That's the critical one for setting the volume. That's going to be a number, and it's going to be this position, the X position of the My Slider movie clip, divided by 100. In other words, when the position is 0, 0 divided by 100 is going to be 0, so the volume will be nothing. That's going to be way over to the left. Remember, we set the registration point over to the left of that groove, the horizontal bar. That's critical. If you find that the volume isn't working or the slider isn't going all the way to the left, check the registration point of the volume underscore movie clip right there, because that's the key line that's setting that reference. In other words, when the X position is all the way over to the right, 100 divided by 100 equals 1. So my vol will equal 1, which is full volume. Then we set the volume, the actual volume right here is set using the sound transform class. So we're setting up a variable, a new sound transform equals, right here, myVol. That's what makes this script different than the one that I'll cover next, which is setting up sound control using buttons, high, medium, low volume, and mute. In those instances, each button is set to a specific value here for the sound transform property. That is a value between 0 and 1. So study this a little bit right here. This code in here is probably really what makes this work. To close out this function, you're checking to see if the sound channel is empty. Then you're setting mySoundChannel.SoundTransform equal to mySoundTransform. And the last set of scripts here is the stop dragging function. Let's go ahead and correct that spelling. Stage.addEventListener, mouse event, mouse up. In other words, when I click on the slider and then let go, I'm going to run this function, in other words, the stop dragging. I'm no longer dragging it because I've let go of the slider. Set the dragging equals to false, volume underscore MC dot mySlider underscore MC dot stop drag. In other words, when you let go of the slider, stop moving it on the stage. Don't forget the last two close curly braces there. Now that you've reached the end of the script, let's go ahead and check our script very carefully. Let's open up our Actions panel. And let's divide this in two. First, check this portion of the script. You probably want to pause the movie here. Double check that your script looks like this one. You can also open up the volume slider underscore finished file and compare it. Next, check the second part of the script here, the pause button, the stop button, the rectangle, the volume control here. Go ahead and pause to make sure that everything looks okay. And after you've double checked everything, moment of truth, control test movie. You should get no errors. Nothing will be playing at first. Click on the play button. You should hear your music or my music if you chose my music. The volume slider should not move or jiggle on the groove. It should stick there and not move up or down, and control the volume. And then lastly, check the buttons. The stop button should stop playback. Play button should start it over from the beginning. And the real way to test this, if you've got everything right, is the pause button. That's the most complex one. Wait for a very specific point of the music. Click the pause button. The music should stop playing, and when you click on the play button, it should proceed from the same position the music was at when you paused it. Normally with a script this complicated, you'd want to test it as you moved through the script, but time didn't permit us to do it with this example. But for now, let's go ahead and wrap up this section of the tutorial by moving on to our final project, the jukebox. Let me review the scripting required to get this project up and running.